So I've seen this come when we're calling it Bant Company because for Robert Boyer, he's got blue cards in the sideboard, but this is the Todd Stevens deck. It's green-white company.
Very minor changes in the main deck.
So generally I see when Todd Stevens plays it, he just crushes the Jeskys and Juns of the world. I want to see if this is a Todd Stevens thing or whether Robert Boyer can follow the game plan.
Jadine also an Abzan master.
Yeah, this is going to be a slugfest here of two fair decks. Noble Hierarch to start for Boyer. The winner here is into day 2. Interestingly, I was talking with Jadine. She says she really hopes to go 6-3 or 8-1. She said she really loves Standard right now. So the worst thing that could happen is if she makes day 2.
I don't want to limp in.
Yeah, she's like, if I'm gonna have to not get, if I want to play Standard, and if I can't play Standard, I want to win the tournament.
Yeah, that's fair.
Inquisition of Kozilek from Jadine. Birds of Paradise.
Ramunap Excavator.
Yeah, Ramunap Excavator.
Ghost Quarter?
Yeah.
Other card.
I believe that's one of Dramoka's command as his last card.
That looks right. Dramoka's command not great in this matchup.
No.
Yeah,
there we go. Yeah, called it.
Good read.
Takes the Excavator. I mean, and that's pretty easy from the Abzan side. You just take the spells that do things and you leave them with the little ones.
I will take your good card.
Whatever costs the most mana, take that. Scavenging Ooze, though, was the pickup for Boyer. He'll attack in for 1 with Noble Hierarch and make Scavenging Ooze. Passes back to Jadine.
Yeah, that is a fine draw. Jadine would like to fatal push that one, I imagine.
Absolutely. Let's go ahead and keep cards trading. She's hoping to win the game with the more powerful spells as we move on.
Fully 4 fatal push in the main deck.
Jadine will cast Grimflayer and pass.
Grimflayer is a fine card. It can have some difficulty going toe-to-toe with Scavenging Ooze.
Yeah, it has trouble with that. In this kind of matchup, it's not easy for it to connect. There's a lot of blockers. You know, Courser of Krufix gets in the way. And for Robert, it's going to be Dramoka's command that has the two creatures fight. Now, Ryan, what do you think of this play where Jadine plays Grimflayer? She knew about the Dramoka's command and just chose to play right into it.
Suggests that she either has something later that matters, she doesn't care about the Grimflayer, and she wants this exchange to happen.
All right, Ooze swings in for 4. Jadine's down to 12.
The worst case scenario on that turn is Robert draws and cast Collected Company. So anything other than that happening is generally fine.
And this makes sense. Jadine shocks down to 10 and pulses away the Scavenging Ooze. We know 1 Birds of Paradise in Robert's hand. We don't know the other card. Jadine has run him out of threats. He needs to draw something that does something. Noble Hierarch, kind of. He attacks for 2 Exalted Triggers, down to 8.
Yeah, a little shy of something.
Yeah, it's
fine. Jadine would like to have Maelstrom Pulse these, but still doing okay in the game.
Treetop Village, Scavenging Ooze of her own. That's a great draw.
That's the one that you wouldn't want to lose to Dramoka's command.
Yeah. And a forest, so Robert has run out of draws. And this is, Abzan is doing, that this is the plan. It's on target right now.
Run him out of stuff.
Run him out of stuff. Be the person who's left with stuff. And you have stuff and they don't. And you win.
That's called an advantage, a stuff advantage. The seldom discussed, probably underappreciated element of Magic.
Looks like Ghost Quarter will take care of Jadine's Treetop Village. Basic land, she's got 2 forests, 2 swamp. No plains. She'll take another forest, though. Scavenging Ooze is a fan. Plenty of cards in the graveyards to eat with Scavenging Ooze as well. And she'll use both mana here to eat away Robert's creatures. She's up to 10 life, and the Ooze grows to a 4/4.
Jadine, plenty of cards left in hand as well. It's like 4 of them. Drawn a main deck Nile Spellbomb. not really the matchup for that, but the reason it's okay to main deck, it at least replaces itself.
Nile Spellbomb. Yeah, gonna go ahead and crack it. Gets Robert's last 2 cards. She'll draw. Scavenging Ooze swings in Robert to 16. And Dark Confidant replaces here for Jadine. Now, as a 2-1, it actually can't profitably block a Noble Hierarch.
Yeah. Given the Dark Confidant being the follow-up, that attack with the Ooze, that was pretty aggressive. Given the Birds of Paradise, though, she can't block anyway.
And you guys get some pressure because here's Knight of the Reliquary attacking for 2. Jadine fetches down to 7. Maybe she has a fatal push here. It's looking like it could be. She goes and gets a swamp.
Yeah, she kind of wanted to fatal push the birds, but seeing that Knight of the Reliquary,
yeah,
that is a great target.
And that's what she'll do. Down to 7 here, hoping that Dark Confidant doesn't hurt too much. Gets another one. She goes to 5.
It's not the most immediate damage it could deal, but it's a card she just
doesn't
probably
doesn't
want to cast.
Yeah, so it's
2 damage for a blank is pretty bad.
So she'll swing with both. Says, hey, let's kill this Dark Confidant, or maybe it'll deal damage. Robert down to 10. Jean's gonna cast Grim Flare.
That one's fine.
Yeah.
See, that's kind of a combination with Dark Confidant. Can leave some lands on top. Maybe put some creatures in your graveyard to exile your Scavenging Ooze, say more Dark Confidants.
It is the idea of a 1-round draft for 100 ticks. Come on, see us at side events. Magic players, this is the last call to register for the 7 p.m. Modern Turbo. If you'd like to Modern Turbo, please come see us at side events.
And Scavenging Ooze eats away the Knight of the Reliquary. So Jadine's keeping pace. Jadine just has to watch out for these Dark Confidant activations. It looks like she has turned the corner here.
Yeah, there were a few more creatures there, so she got to, wash with the Birds of Paradise exactly.
Maelstrom Pulse
puts does some damage, but it stops all of the damage output for Robert.
Hold on. It also just wins. If you get the Noble Hierarchs.
Yep.
Yeah, okay, that's easier.
Yeah, that's a great draw.
Okay, Jadine and she sees it right away. Gonna take the first game, drops down to 2, but successfully stays alive, and with Obzon, she is up 1 game to 0.
Easy. Take their good stuff, kill their good stuff.
So in a second, we're gonna look at what makes Robert's Greenway Company deck a Bant Company deck and see whether he wants to do that against Jadine. We'll do that and look at her sideboard when we come back in just a minute. So, game 2 here for day 2. Robert Boyer versus Jadine Klomparens. Looking at Robert Boyer's sideboards, he starts as a traditional green-white company deck. In the sideboard, the blue is for 3 Unified Will. Outside that, he has 2 Engineer Explosives, 2 Surgical Extraction, an Eldritch Evolution, another blue card, Nissa, Steward of Elements, an Eidolon of Rhetoric, a Kataki, a Linvala, a Reclamation Sage, a Stony Silence, and a Whisperwood Elemental.
Couple fine options here. Whisperwood Elemental is pretty good in any kind of mid-rangey mirror.
Yeah.
So I like that one a good amount. Linvala, Keeper of Silence is fine, not great. There's a couple things it shuts off that are not super meaningful. And the Nissa, Steward of Elements is probably the other card I'd consider reaching for. As long as you can keep the board relatively even, you can use that to get some card advantage. It's probably pretty good in the matchup.
Yeah, you don't want it being attacked down. That would be the risk of it.
Yeah.
But if you can play it and defend it, it is very good here.
Right.
Now on Jadine's side, she has 3 Collective Brutalities, 3 Fulminator Mages, and 3 Stony Silences. So some hate cards for specific matchups. And then one-ofs, Duress, Engineered Explosives, Grafter Cage, Nile Spellbomb. She actually looks like she's moved one of her Lingering Souls to the sideboard.
Yep.
Yeah, the other 3 on their main. And then a Liliana the Last Hope.
Liliana Last Hope's really good against somebody that's full on birds and noble hierarchs.
Yep.
That one's for sure coming in.
Yeah, that's her second copy, actually. There is one in the main already.
Yep. Collective Brutality, generally fine in these matchups. If you can get a Collective Company out of the hand, that's great. Sometimes you kill a Mana Dork and it matters. Rest of the sideboard's not really looking like too much. Engineered Explosives is okay. In a deck that's so full of creatures, you like it less, though.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of ones. It's another way we can get rid of those birds. But I think in this matchup, the early Birds of Paradise don't matter as much. Yeah. You know, you want to get them on turn 1. You want to bolt the bird, and Engineer Explosives never does that.
Right. Yeah. Fatal Push is what you're trying to do, not really cast a 3-mana spell to interact. And Jadine, been looking over the list. I think there's 0 Path to Exile in the 75.
So the only white card is the Lingering Souls and then sideboard cards?
Yep.
So this, if that's where she's at, this is the type of list that could easily incorporate Bloodbraid Elf.
Yeah, just throw in some red sources, maybe up the fetch land count.
Maybe get rid of a Tireless Tracker because you have Bloodbraid now.
Yeah.
I could see it. Fatal Push just ends up better than Path to Exile. But it is interesting that once you're not playing Path that you would still decide to play Abzan over, say, Jund.
Lingering Souls is a really powerful card.
Yeah. Both players with Windswept Heaths to begin with. Interestingly, there's no 1-mana creature for Robert.
You can certainly win with slower hands. If you start on 2, have 1 of your 3 drops, be it Knight of the Reliquary or Courser of Krufix, curve into Collected Company, you're off to the races.
Robert Boyer draws a copy of Collected Company.
No action on 2 either. Deck does not play a ton of 2-drops. It plays more 1s than 2s.
Yeah, and I guess it's the kind of matchup where if he really just thinks he can win a mid-range fight, he doesn't have to accelerate or play lower impact cards. He can just kind of on turn 3 start making Knight of the Reliquaries, Coursers, Eternal Witnesses. That could work.
Yeah, it is a fine plan.
You know, if Jadine gets out with something like Grim Flayer, I think that'll force his hand some. But she may not have a card either.
Generally, her deck is more fine with nothing happening in the early turns.
She does fetch shock and has Grim Flayer. So now, why not fetch shock, just fetch. Now we'll see what Robert can put together. Looks like he has a path of his own. He's left the removal in.
Yeah, some of the creatures from Abzan, they are quite large. The Grim Flayer can become a 4/4. Tarmogoyf is a problem, so having some paths makes sense.
Knight of the Reliquary for Robert says go. It's a 3/3 right now. It's going to open the window anything like Maelstrom Pulse or Liliana of the Veil.
Big check for Liliana of the Veil. That one would be really bad.
Yeah, kind of expect one of those. But maybe not. I guess even Fatal Push here would work if she has a fetch.
Yep.
Looks like Maelstrom Pulse is at the front of her hand, so going to have that as an answer. Overgrown Tomb will put herself down to 16.
Yeah, that's a fine one.
Yeah, Pulses away the blocker. No Delirium yet, so she just connects for 2. Robert down to 15, but she'll get the Grim Flayer trigger. Top 3. Abrupt Decay, Shambling Vent, Scavenging Ooze. We'll see what she wants to keep.
She put creature in her grave. She put creature instant in her graveyard. She'd have Delirium, but these are very good spells.
Yeah, so it looks like she's gonna put neither, just binning the Shambling Vent.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So next turn she's drawing either Abrupt Decay or Scavenging Ooze.
The thing about the Abrupt Decay is it should find its way into your graveyard one way or the other.
Yes.
So you don't really have to bin that one. And the Scavenging Ooze, it's pretty good at outsizing everything in the matchup, so it makes sense to hold on to that one too.
And I think the priority of getting Grim Flayer to a 4/4 in this matchup just isn't that big.
Yeah.
So main phase Company from Robert. This card can be tough for Jen to deal with. It's a lot of value when it hits. Looks like Voice, Knight, Ooze, plenty of options. Robert hit a good one.
Yeah, these are some nice finds.
And he'll go Voice of Resurgence and Knight of the Reliquary. This is a lot of value for 4 mana. He'll pass. That's going to be hard for Jadine to cleanly answer this stuff.
Yeah, she'll want an answer to the Knight of the Reliquary right away.
But even then, Voice of Resurgence not easy to answer. I guess in her spot she can attack through it.
Yeah, once she hits Delirium, she can trample over it.
She draws. She may have drawn a. Remember, she drew either Abrupt Decay or Scavenging Ooze that turn.
Yep.
In her situation, I think you'd hope it was Abrupt Decay.
Right.
Other one is on top of the deck, so she plays a Marsh Flats and now has to decide whether or not it's worth sacrificing.
Yeah, so she won't have a good attack this turn. So you got to figure out what you're doing. You can't cast Abrupt Decay during Robert's turn. You just get elemental tokens with the Voice Resurgence. So you want to plan this all out now before you take any actions.
Knight is a 4/4. Jadine is going to attack. Now this is a bit of a bait because you wonder, okay, is she gonna give her creature Delirium all of a sudden?
Could be Delirium from nowhere. Could just be kill the blocker and trample over.
Yeah, Voice of Resurgence will block. Jadine has Abrupt Decay, but that doesn't actually put her at Delirium. She, okay, she's gonna Abrupt Decay away the Voice.
Just trampling over for 2, it seems.
Yeah.
There's another removal spell for the Knight, then this makes more sense.
Nihil Spellbomb on top. That's a pretty good one. She'll bin it. Okay, never mind.
It's another card type. That's why it's good.
Yeah. Scavenging Ooze and Tarmogoyf, the top 2.
Those are some heavy hitters.
Yeah.
She is in the market for removal spells, though.
Gonna ditch the Tarmogoyf, keep the Ooze was the decision.
Modern Turbo, just one more slot for Modern Turbo.
Then cracks a fetch land?
We also have 4 slots.
There's some sequencing here on Jadine that I'm not, like, with that trigger on, I almost expected she would crack a fetch land.
Right.
I mean, she can Fatal Push, but she needs Revolt, so she'll get rid of the Ooze she had left on top.
Yeah, there's not a reason to do it in this order. Assumption is that she's kind of changed her mind in the middle of the sequencing.
Yeah. And push away the Knight. So this turn still works out for Jadine. Though she did have to spend 2 spells to get rid of Robert's 1. So he is starting, you know, Robert's 1 card made Voice a Knight. Jadine spent an Abrupt Decay and a Fatal Push. And even then Robert had, and has an Elemental left around. So he's winning on these exchanges. But now he's companies again.
Oh, the last two.
Yeah, Courser, and the good Courser and Tireless Tracker.
Yeah.
And you see this value element of the company deck can be very difficult for something like Abzan to get past.
Yeah. If you're just making 2 great creatures a turn, that's really hard to overcome.
Yeah, so now a 3/3, a 3/2, a 2/4, a Clue. Tons of value on Robert's side. And he still has Path to Exile. Ely Token will swing for 3. Jadine's down to 12. And upkeep, he's going to path away the Grim Flayer. And this is the thing where, you know, I was saying on Robert's side when he was on the play, he had no 1-mana play or no 2-mana play. And I said, normally that's not good. But in this kind of matchup, I think he'll be fine as long as his follow-ups are big.
Yeah, it's not like he's playing against a combo deck. He doesn't have to get out ahead of anything. He just has to outlast.
Yeah, and, you know, the kind of thing where your hand is, you know, a Knight of the Reliquary and 2 collected companies and 4 lands, you're going to keep that all day against Abzan.
Outlast is the Abzan mechanic from Tarkir block.
Great.
For the viewers at home that might have missed that clever reference.
Yeah, I mean, when he draws his... She's got to draw her Disowned Ancestor, and then she'll start going, you know...
Now there's a good Outlast card.
The Battle Priest, perhaps.
Yeah, Abzan Battle Priest.
That one was a good one.
That card was in some modern deck.
It was in the set.
+1/+1 counters deck.
Did they play Battle Priest?
Played
oh,
one.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. The Merek Nightblade.
I don't think they played that one.
That guy's an assassin. He's an orc assassin, I believe.
Very flavorful, I assume.
More value here on Jadine's side. Another Clue, another life point. Now, Lingering Souls was cast that last turn, and Dark Confidant. So now Engineer Explosives from Robert. Plays and cracks it on 2 to get rid of the Dark Confidant. Swings with the whole team.
No good blocks with these spirit tokens.
Well, they could block the. They could trade for Tyler's tracker. I think that's what she's going to do.
Yeah.
That's fine from Robert. He just wants to keep her board traded away. 5 damage in. Jadine's down to 5. You know, she's down to 1 card. Robert still has 2 in hand plus 2 clues.
Back up. That attack with the tracker is pretty surprising.
I like it, actually. When you're ahead by this many cards, I like simplifying the board by trading. And even if it's a bad trade like this, I'm still in.
Okay.
I understand where you're like, normally I don't want to give away this card's not worth 2 1/1s. I get it.
From 14 life, I feel like we have something to play with.
Jadine's going to fetch. It's the principle. Also, if your opponent thinks it's a bad play, then you gain some good value because they now think you're bad. And then they will respect you less, which usually works in your favor.
You want to get them tilted for game 3.
Yeah. Last card on Jadine's side is Liliana, the Last Hope. Love the card in this matchup. Don't love it right here. She -2s it to get back her Tarmogoyf. Casts Tarmogoyf, and then I think Lingering Souls.
Yes, the Tarmogoyf that she cleverly milled away with that Grimflayer.
But Jadine's out of resources. Artifact. We have all 4. We also have Artifact added. So it's a 5/6.
Yeah, that's the biggest creature on the battlefield now. A couple spirits to chump block as well. Her position has improved substantially. And I gotta say, if I'm Robert, I really wish I still had that tireless tracker.
It'll be fine. I wouldn't worry. Don't worry about it. It's probably fine.
It's not my place to worry. I'm not worried, but I'd like to see it.
2 Birds of Paradise, and it looks like maybe Azusa in Robert's hand. So he's going to crack clues. He goes ahead and draws this voice, finds a Courser. Cracks a fetch land. Remember, he gets to stay at 15. He loses the life on the fetch land, gains it back off Courser.
That's a combo.
He can only get the elemental token up to a 5/5 this turn.
A little bit shy of the Goyf then.
And Knight of the Reliquary on top. So no reason to cast the Azusa. Looks like he can go for double birds plus voice. And that's exactly what Robert will do.
Still doesn't really have good attacks.
No, not yet. He'll need a couple more creatures in play or to draw something like Gavany Township, which Knight of the Reliquary, if it resolves next turn, can go find for him.
Yeah, Township would change things dramatically.
So, Jadine will though go to work, keeping Robert's board simple at Liliana plus. That has a great target. One of the Birds of Paradise hits the bin. No other plays on Jadine's side, so she holds her draw for the turn and passes back. We go back over to Robert. Draws Knight of the Reliquary. His hand is 2 3-drops, Azusa and Knight. He'll start by playing the Ghost Quarter for free off the top of the deck. That's land 7. And then we have Aven Mind Sensor, I believe, waiting on top.
Of the cards that died to Liliana the Last Hope, that's one of the better ones because it has Flash. They can still connect for 2 first.
It's good and bad.
The spirits are pretty good against it, though.
Yeah. I'm kind of out on 3-mana cards that die to Liliana here. Knight of the Reliquary and Azusa. The cards here from Robert. He's now out of cards in hand. But his token, that Ely token, is 6/6, so it can swing in. Jadine could trade the Tarmogoyf with it. Robert would be fine with that.
So Jadine, just the 1 card in hand. It was the card that she drew last turn. If it's a removal spell.
Yeah, I was going to say that this is a little reckless on Robert's side because if that's a removal spell, he's losing a ton here.
Well, she's not moving like it is.
Well, no, I don't think it is, but I think on Robert's side, I would have played a bit safer and just not done this attack.
Yeah.
So she will double block. That offers the Tarmogoyf for the token. And that's what Robert will take. So Goif down.
If Jadine's so inclined, she could trade the Liliana for the Tarmogoyf back. She really wants an answer to this Knight to the Reliquary, though. If that finds Gavany Township, this game's all but over.
Right. Gonna have to do it this turn.
Yep.
And I think because her cards are all standalone good, whereas Robert's cards have synergy, they get better with each other. The longer this game goes, I do feel that eventually Robert will overpower.
Yeah. And with those 2 good hits off of Collected Company,
yeah,
Robert put Jadine in a really rough spot.
And she makes Tarmogoyf and passes, and now Robert, he'll show there's Whisperwood Elemental in the sideboard. Jadine gets to see that. Cracks a clue to draw it.
Yikes.
And yeah, he'll just cast Whisperwood. Why not?
What could possibly go wrong?
Sure, there's a 5/6. Actually, it is a 6/7 Tarmogoyf. We will not move the die until until it matters.
I think he heard you.
Yeah, Planeswalker was added with Liliana, and now that's a manifested voice of Resurgence. And Jadine's good. Whispered Elemental's a heck of a card for her to beat.
Yeah. Wasn't thrilled about those first 2 Collected Companies, but that one ought to seal it.
All right, so it's going to come down to a deciding game 3. Winner moves on to day 2. Jadine will be on the play. We'll be back in just a couple of minutes. So we're back here, Jadine, Klomparens, and Robert Boyer. Jadine will be back on the play for our 3rd and final game. Last game, neither player came out particularly fast. Jadine actually on the draw. Her Grim Flare was the first play, but Robert really just overpowered her with a pair of Collected Companies.
Yep. Just land drops into haymakers. Really good hits off the Companies, too. Difficult for Obzon to recover from that. Robert also has access to a few removal spells. We saw Path to Exile and Engineered Explosives. That'll stop Jadine from stealing games with Grimflayer and Tarmogoyf too quickly.
Looks like Robert on a mulligan here. Yeah, the card Collected Company is more powerful really than most of Obzon's 4s. So if they get into the Slugfest, Company does win.
Right. Assuming good hits.
Yeah, no, on Jadine's side, do you want to go keep in some Thought Seizes to fight that, or you just hope he doesn't draw?
I don't mind having some Thought Seizes. kind of the bigger one is probably Collective Brutality to try to impact the battlefield and get a card. Now that you know that Path to Exile is in, there's more hits.
Yeah, I was going to say the hard part about Collective Brutality is that it misses a lot. Jadine will Thoughtseize. Let's take a look. We have Eldritch Evolution, Voice of Resurgence, Path to Exile, Engineered Explosives, and 2 lands. I was actually surprised to see Eldritch Evolution in this matchup.
I think the reason it must be in is because of Whisper Elemental.
Okay, yeah, turn a 3 into a Whisperwood seems great.
Right. Not a ton else it does that it's worth that I would get excited about. Suppose turning a bird into Knight of the Reliquary is pretty nice in some spots. Even a Tireless Tracker if you have a fetch land in hand.
Sure. Thoughtseizes away Engineered Explosives. That's what Jadine picks. She's gonna read
I'm taking that card, but I'm going to read this one.
I like that when you read one after making your decision. That's always I like that line.
And you got to make sure to mutter something like, oh, that might have been a mistake.
Nissa, Steward of Elements, the draw from Robert. So right now his hand is just very uncastable.
Yeah.
It can be, if it makes, it'll be fine. He's got very good cards, and he's not far off casting them either.
Yeah, turn 2 Voice Resurgence is pretty fine in this matchup, if you can make it happen.
Treetop Village from Jadine, and she'll just pass back. It's going to be Voice of Resurgence from Robert. He does hit the Temple Garden. So down goes to 17 to cast. We go to Jadine, see if she has a play back. Still no blue mana for the Nissa from Robert. Now, if Jadine took Engineered Explosives, you assume she's protecting some card?
Probably 1 or 2 threats. You know, some combination of Grimflayer, Tarmogoyf, Dark Confidant.
Okay.
Maybe even Lingering Souls. That one's pretty vulnerable to explosives. Could be that she saw that hand and thought, I can race this with flyers.
What's interesting to me in that she would take a card over the Voice of Resurgence. It's really a show of that she's protecting something good. We see Fatal Push and Grim Flayer, the turn 3 play here for Jadine. So it does mostly answer the Voice of Resurgence.
Yeah.
Back over to Robert. Draws another path. So his hand Eldritch Evolution, 2 paths, a land, and a Nissa. Here's 1 path. He'll take care of the Grim Flayer, ramp Jadine up to 4. But it's a concern for Robert. He doesn't have really more lands or more threats. He's looking for a lot. He swings in for 1.
Right. If Jadine has Liliana the Last Hope on this turn, that would be a huge swing for her.
Yeah, it's rare you get to tag this token with Liliana the Last Hope, but it's really good if you can.
Oh, yeah.
Looks like she does have Lingering Souls. And that might just be the play. 4-card hand for Jadine. No, she has the Last Hope. Good call. The Ely token is down. Land 5 for Jadine. 2 left in hand. This Liliana the Last Hope is going to be trouble.
Yeah, because the Flare was answered by Path, there's no creatures in the graveyard just yet, but if she keeps the board clear, build up to -7, that emblem just typically wins games, and this is not a matchup where I imagine there's going to be many exceptions to that.
Yeah, Jadine does still have pressure as well. Treetop Village you see in her lands, and now she'll make Scavenging Ooze. I really like where she's at.
Yep, yeah, really good spot. A lot of pressure on Robert to get on the battlefield in a big way quickly.
Well, he drew Ramanap Excavator, so that'll help him make more land drops. I said the 2 things he was missing were threats and lands. I don't really think Excavator is a threat, but I do think it counts as a land.
Yeah, certainly. He has access to that Windswept Heath, so he can make that every turn.
Yeah, and that's what he will do. So he fetches immediately with it. He could get blue mana here, I assume. One breeding pool. Yeah, he does have that Nissa in hand. He's going to go for a Plains. He does have another path in his hand.
Yeah, and he'll continue to have access to that Windswept Heath as long as the Excavator doesn't die.
Right.
Probably not in a rush to cast the Nissa. It's not great here.
Yeah, and he's going to actually main phase Path because he doesn't want Scavenging Ooze eating those lands out of his graveyard.
Yeah. Yeah, the Ooze is pretty nice in that spot. Now that's exiled, so Jadine. Again, no creatures to get back with Liliana.
Yeah, you're right. She's got a lot of mana now. That doesn't mean if she draws creature lands, she can start putting more pressure.
Yeah, she still has that Treetop Village. If she wanted to get aggressive, she could attack with that. Gets to use Liliana to check the Excavator. Make that a 0-2 for the duration of the turn cycle. Ooh. That was an aggressive line. She -2'd on the Liliana, hoping to find a creature, and just hit a land and an Abrupt Decay.
Right, so that's a big hit. She does get to play in Flashback Lingering Souls, but this is an opening for Robert.
I'm pretty surprised at that play from Jadine. It seems like the Liliana itself might have been enough to win this game.
Yeah, I mean, it shows that she does not believe that's true. You know, thinks that she needs another threat, and maybe if that's the case. But now Robert's going to go ahead and make Nissa. He's recovering. Gets that breeding pool. This might be a surprise for Jadine. I don't think she's seen any blue mana or blue cards up until this point. And Nissa on 3. Nissa, Steward of Elements.
At 3, you don't want to just leave it dead to Lingering Souls, so I would expect to see Scrying. Top 2, looks like he's looking at Noble Hierarch and a card that he wants.
All right. Gonna swing with the Ramanep Excavator. It's offering some trade. Jadine just block, so it trades away Ramanep with 2 spirits. Robert trying to get some of those out of the way so that his Nissa can stick around. It makes sense.
Jadine has that Treetop Village, though. She does still have lethal on the Nissa.
Yeah, and that's what she'll do. Full swing in here. Nissa's down. Land for Jadine. And it's not, I wish it was a Hissing Quagmire for her. It's a Blooming Marsh, so that's not, she's got all this extra land that Robert's given her off Path to Exiles, but doesn't have a way to use it.
Right.
Of course, her crew fix for Robert shows Knight of the Reliquary on top. And Scavenging Ooze. So once again, Robert's just drawing more stuff. Liliana, the Last Hope was great here, but it's not giving her board presence.
This would be the turn Liliana was going up to 7.
Yeah. Yeah, that miss really has mattered.
Yeah, if she hit a creature, the game would, of course, be slightly different as well. Which her odds were fine to do. Kind of lining up how combat works with this Treetop Village. Can't imagine she's looking at attacking with it this turn. Suppose it combines with the Liliana. Maybe she wants to see if she can get the Courser with it.
Courser will block Treetop Village by itself. That's okay.
Yeah,
Liliana finishes it off. I'm surprised on that play.
Yeah, that was a good exchange.
And then Flame Flashback Lingering Souls is Jadine's last cards. So there should be 2 more spirits in play here, which we'll get in a second. All right. Yeah, those will have to work. Yeah, 4 untapped spirits, 2 tapped spirits. And now Jadine does have the race, should be able to win a race from here.
And now her position's looking good again.
Well, it could, I guess, still be close depending on how many creatures you have for this Scavenging Ooze.
It can get large quickly. From Jadine at 9, Liliana at 4. Scavenging Ooze, it's a good attack either way. But you need to be able to break through these spirit tokens. Because Jadine still has that treetop village, she can do a lot of blocking for this Liliana. She very well might be able to set up to get up to the ultimate, despite spending that turn -2ing.
And Jadine counting now 5 spirit tokens on the treetop village.
So you got to balance how aggressive you want to be and how much you want to block for this Liliana. If you have a line where you think your spirits will be able to just close in time, then you don't really have to do too much with the Liliana. You just come in with these flyers, and from 11, it doesn't take too long for them to close.
Swinging here, up represents 7. Gene at 9, Robert at 11. Can take the hit.
Robert's still hanging on to that Eldritch Evolution that both players have known about since turn 1.
Yeah. If you're hanging on to it this late, he drops to 4. You wonder, what's it in here for? Guess we'll find out. She plays Tarmogoyf pluses Liliana on the Scavenging Ooze and says go. 2 creatures eaten out of the graveyard. Robert goes back up to 6 as the Ooze grows. And we go over to Boyhair. Draws a land.
Horizon Canopy.
Okay,
it's a redraw.
Is there anything great to Eldritch into? There's no like Orzhov Pontiff or something like that. Something that can, you know, really change this board.
Yeah, kind of the nicest looking card in the matchup in general is Whisper Elemental. It does not match up against Lingering Souls tokens.
Yeah, we're just late. Now, does he have an Engineered Explosives in the graveyard? If he does, he could Eldritch Evolution into an Eternal Witness, get that back, play on 0, and crack.
Okay, I believe that was the card that was thought seized on turn 1.
Okay, so that's available. I think, yeah, you can under-evolve.
Yeah.
You can turn a 2 into a 3. It doesn't have to go into a 4. I don't know that that makes him win, as opposed to just making him not lose.
Right. He still has to worry about
Liliana,
the Spirit, like the Tarmogoyf.
He's going to Eldritch Evolution the Knight. I wonder if it's into Eternal Witness. I would have tapped the Knight first, however.
Yeah, certainly would have done that.
Yeah, he's getting Whisperwood.
Your turbo draft is ready to begin.
I think so, you know, Jadine will maybe have to hang back a little bit more, but doesn't stop him from dying to the spirit tokens.
No. So, 2-man, he has a Horizon Canopy as the last card here, and he manifests the top of his deck, says go. All right. On Jadine's side, just checking out the board. Still has those 4 flyers.
Now the Evolution put the Knight in the graveyard, so that's 1 more life. Robert at a technical 7.
And there's a Ghost Quarter untapped, so that Treetop Village isn't doing much. Jadine doesn't realistically want to minus the Liliana. They put more cards in the graveyard for Scavenging Ooze. You don't want to see Robert get to 9 life here. That take a turn off your clock.
If it's 2 creatures, she gets 1 back, and you get to gain 1 life.
Yeah, she is going to -2.
But if it's just 1 creature, you just get it back. Or if it's 0 creatures, you just do this.
Yep.
But her spirit token should be able to close the game.
Here's a swing for 4. Robert down to 2. And he'll gain a life, go back up to 3, but he's still facing possibly lethal next turn. We'll see what Robert can get. He has manifested 1 card. No, I still, Ryan, right now, wish that Robert had a Knight of the Reliquary. Whisperwood is, well, it's normally a great card in the matchup, but
yeah,
I'll
just
play Horizon Canopy, yeah.
quite a bit too late in this game. Redraws into planes, that's not going to do it.
No.
Jadine should be able to fly across for lethal on the following turn.
Well, it depends what his manifest is. I suppose if it's, I don't know what it could be.
Some kind of flying wall of glare.
Yeah.
Avatar of Hope.
We're looking at that.
If it's Avatar of Hope and he can Restoration Angel it.
So he's going to swing, force some blocks. Jadine activates Treetop Village. Robert will Ghost Quarter it.
Sure. Yeah. Just put the Tarmogoyf in front of one of these large creatures. Don't take lethal damage.
Yeah, I mean, I might. Well, it's interesting because what if the face down card is a Knight of the Reliquary? Does she die?
She can just chump block that with a Spirit.
Okay, she chump blocks the Spirit, puts Tarmogoyf in front of something else. Robert can only gain life up to 4, and then she stacks for 4.
Yep.
It's close, but it adds up. That would make her lose to a Path to Exile.
It would have to be before blockers.
Okay.
And she has 1 more than lethal attackers.
Well, there is still that Knight of the Reliquary apparently in Robert's yard, right? That's what she's seeing.
Yeah.
So he is at 4, so she really doesn't want another creature to hit the graveyard.
There's really not a way around it because the Tarmogoyf has to get in front of one of these creatures.
Yeah. I mean, you could block the Manifest with Tarmogoyf and hope that it's just a land or something.
Yeah.
That would put no more creatures in the graveyard if that's what she's concerned about. Going to time here. Under a minute remaining in the round.
Looks like Tireless Tracker is the last non-land card in Robert's hand.
So Whisperwood dies. Spirit Token dies. Jadine takes 2, goes to 7.
Yeah, Robert should just gain 2 life here.
Yeah.
Yeah, casting the tracker loses on the spot.
Yeah, he doesn't have any. So Jadine Klomparens in 3, just as we hit time, is going to take the match.